Hello there, my name is Kaz, and I'd like to talk about my process in designing my main OC for the story that I am planning on drawing. When designing this design of her that I hope to be the last one, I mainly wanted to emphasize her features that weren't really emphasized inside of the past designs. For example, her nose, her eyes, and her mouth. That is one of the main things that is very important in the story, as it covers a lot of racial things, and this design I tried to focus on that, which is why I spent a lot of time mainly on the face. I also kept in mind shapes, like for her jaw I wanted to be slim with a more triangle shape, but at the edges I wanted to make it sharper with a square. And with her eyes, I wanted to make them more rectangular than how I normally make them sharper and upturned. I wanted them to be more flat leveled. Although another thing that I changed about her was making her eyebrows thicker than I normally did whenever I'm redesigning her. And I also focused a lot more on her hair, like the blockiness of it. And this is also a thing that I took inspiration of from other series when they would design characters who had curly hair, and they'd give it a more blocky shape. And for example, there would be Garnet, who has quite literally a square to emphasize her afro, and I wanted to keep that in mind when designing her, as her hair is supposed to be a mix of straight but also extremely curly. It's more of a fantasy feature inside of the book. And I wanted to also show off her scars more, because that is also very important to her backstory. And another thing that I did was I wanted to focus more on her body, since that is something that I struggled with her past designs, of making her body too square and too compact when she is supposed to be more of a triangle figure with a very long body but slim limbs. And I kept this in mind, and I drew out a small silhouette when designing her. I really recommend this for anybody, just drawing a small silhouette, no details or anything like that. Since I have a hard time blocking out shapes, it really helps me at least get her body down. I'd also recommend drawing small curves or lines for certain parts of like the body and stuff if you struggle with keeping the same shape for a lot of it. For this part, I wanted to draw more of her comic self. Like, I recommend this for anyone who plans on doing a comic. I recommend making one version of your character that's super detailed and stuff for things like posters, full illustrations, or very important chapters where you want them to look detailed. And then I recommend making an undetailed version of themselves. This is what I mainly did for this part, where I mapped out her undetailed version of herself, where I don't have to worry about making everything super accurate or all that stuff. Mainly for this one, this is supposed to help me when I'm drawing action poses and just calm scenes, because I find it really hard to draw details inside of those scenes, but a lot of my characters are very detailed. And also, this is another thing, figure drawing helps so much. This is my version of figure drawing. Some people draw their figure drawing different, and it really helped me with drawing her wings, which are a very important detail, since they're like main, sorry about stumbling on my words, but they're a main feature of hers that are brought up a lot inside of the story and are considered very important. I also try to show out her body language that she shows through a lot of the story, and I don't feel like I did a very good job at this part where I'm like showing off her body language, because she's supposed to be like more closed off, but I think I've shown her like to be more chill than all that. Like, do you get it? I don't think nobody will really get this. And I really liked how this one actually turned out. I felt like it was very good, and I really liked how the undetailed version came out of her. It's very pretty, it catched her energy in the face a lot. And the only regret that I have about this version is that I forgot her 2 scars that she normally has. I only drew one of them, and that was for some of them. But other than that, I feel like I did a really good job at this. I really liked how she turned out and stuff. So yeah, moving on, I would like to talk more about the character, herself. Her name is Huang Ying. Her name later inside of the story changed to Ying Marcelona after she gets adopted. And she's a villain turned hero. And she was more of a forced villain then. I don't want to explain too much because then I'll have nothing to talk about inside of later videos, even though there is a lot of lore for her. But this version of her, because there's multiple different versions of her as the story goes on and she starts to heal more, this version of her is about 3 months after she was saved. That's why her hair at the beginning, it was black, because inside of the place where she was moved to she lived with her villain, and this is very hard to explain. I'm realizing this. Do y'all ever just talk about your OCs and stuff, and then you think all the lore inside their head and you can easily repeat it back in your head, but when you're talking to someone actually about it, it's very hard to tell them about her. I have that. And okay, moving back onto track. She lived in this facility that the main villain of the story, Yahoo, inside of this facility, there was people that were called the girls, and they basically grew up there and were taught into villainy and how to be assassins and stuff. And so Ying used to live there, and now that she has been escaped and saved by heroes and stuff, she's living and learning to become a better person and stuff, kind of. Well, she was never really a bad person, but learning to forget her villain ways and stuff. And this was 3 months after she was saved, and back at the facility, this is one of the main important things about her design that I really liked a lot, was back at the facility, they used to all have the same hair color. They all used to dye their hair black after the first week of being there, mainly so that way if any of the girls were captured, they'd all look very alike. And it would be hard to be able to identify them if they all had similar features, like black hair and white eye contacts. And so Ying, she had her hair dyed black, and since her eyes were already white, which isn't a detail that I really included here inside of the colored sketches, but since her eyes were already white, she fit in pretty well. And after she was saved, about 2 months after, all the dye has now officially come out of her hair, and so this was after 2 months. This is her design after 2 months, and so I really liked how it turned out. I also really liked the significance of her hair throughout the story, which slowly shows her letting her roots grow out and her hair becoming her natural blonde again. Okay, moving a bit onwards. So this is 3 months after she's been saved, right? At this point, she's training to become a hero. She's training to become a hero again. This is a superhero society. I took very much inspiration off of My Hero Academia, but as much as I took inspiration off of My Hero Academia, I'd like to say it is more similar to The Incredibles, which I also took heavy inspiration off of, especially with the way that these heroes work. Inside of this, they're called heroes, but their powers, I think, are called Alma. I'm not sure. Whatever is because originally their powers, I named the powers off of a word in Hindi, which I think was supposed to mean gift, and I forgot what it meant because I haven't used it a lot. I just mainly refer to them as powers, but I want to refer to them as that, and it's I really like it. I really like the way that they work. And I know I'm just rambling, but at this point, if you clicked on this video, you had to expect me to at least ramble. But yeah, and I really like the way that I've written out their society and like how their society works. Mainly, the society it's sectioned off into 3 different type of people. There's the heroes, then there's the villains, and then there's the civilians. Civilians are normal people, right? Everybody inside this world has powers. There is nobody in this world that doesn't have a power, and if you don't have a power, it's because it was taken from you. And it's like, if your power was taken from you, you're kind of like, this is where I got my inspiration off of My Hero. You're treated like if you were quirkless, right? You're treated like you're a lower human being, and mainly it's because people who often have their powers taken away from them were people who were using their powers for evil, and they were specifically ordered to have their powers taken away from them because their powers were too dangerous and they were harming people. Which I was like, that's pretty cool. That's freaking cool or whatever. And this is mainly to people who are like serial killers and stuff like that. Their powers were taken away from them. And there's also, I love the hero society that I have set up. The heroes, they go by like, there's multiple different kinds of heroes. And it's like, if you work in any way with heroes, I guess you're technically called a hero. But there's like other subjects, like subpars of being a hero, I guess. I'm not sure what the word is. But like, there's different categories of being a hero. For example, Ying, despite the fact that she's being trained to be a hero, she's being trained under 2 different things. She's being trained to be a support hero, which is like a sidekick or someone that makes stuff that helps out heroes and stuff. And she's also being trained to be what is called a situation 0 hero, where if there is like a situation where the villain absolutely needs to be killed, because like in other cases, most heroes, they try to solve the situation in a non-lethal way, but if like it is absolutely necessary that this villain needs to be killed or assassinated, then yeah, she will pop up and she will like be like, hey, I'm here to kill this villain, you know? Which is like super cool, because like it kind of works with her being a villain as well, because like, you know, she's killed people before. She's probably going to be really good at this. That's why, main reason why they put her with that type of thing. And another thing is the classes that she takes to being a hero. Like, there's hero schools, and I think I put her inside of a hero academy that's placed inside of Fukunaga. I forgot what the place is named, but it's in Japan, and she goes there for hero school, and they offer these classes to villains who are like trying to change their life. Like, if you don't go to, like, if you're like a young villain and you're not old enough to go to prison, but they also see like potential in you that you could become a better person, then you're put inside of these classes, right? She's inside of this class, and that is where she meets like most of her friends and all that stuff. And like, oh my god, I cannot wait till I like draw the other characters, because I want to talk about them so much, because like her character is hard to explain and the other ones are more like simple, mainly because she is the main character, so there's a lot of more depth to her than other characters and stuff. There's gonna be like, I plan on making a whole video explaining their powers, and like it's gonna be like so cool, and I'm geeking out about this. It's freaking amazing, and I love this story. It's like super cool. This is like one of the first stories where I've gotten past the initial design phase, and I've actually already started writing a lot of it. And yeah, she's like one of my favorite characters. Another thing that I like to point out is like, what was it? I really liked the backgrounds that I gave these characters. Like, I was like, okay, look at me go. Creativity. And then like, I realized that I don't have a lot to rant about her, because I don't want to say too much. like y'all ever have that where you don't want to say too much about a character that you're designing, so like you hold back on saying too much about it, but now you have nothing to talk about it. Fun little detail, for a while she used to think she was a lesbian, and then she ended up liking this boy inside of her villain class. He is heavily inspired off of the Prowler, which is like super hilarious because he's like a complete dunce. He's like an idiot. But his hero design, like his hero costume that he gets later on, and when he was a villain, is heavily based off of the Prowler. This is like what's popping up on screen right now of this other drawing that I'm doing. This was a drawing that I started but didn't finish, and the one laying on Ying's lap, that is him. His name is Hakim, and he was a villain, but after a fight that he had with a hero, he developed amnesia from it and forgot that he was even a villain or anything that he did as a villain. And when he was enrolled inside of the villain class, they were like, hey, do you ever regret what you did? And he's like, hey, my favorite thing about them is that certain ones of the villains, they never regret what they did. Like, for example, Hakim, he's like, yeah, I get it, I was a villain, but if you really think about it, why would I be a villain? Like, there had to be a good reason behind me becoming a villain, so don't get mad at me that I'm not regretful for killing all these people. It's like I like making characters that don't need an explanation behind being a villain. Like, I'm so sick of reading stories and stuff where they're like, oh, the villain had a very sad backstory and that's why they're a villain. Like, no, just make them evil. Fun. It's like cool and all that. Time's like running out. I'm realizing this very quickly. Video's about to end. I'll rant about this more later probably, and make another video when I draw again, which probably won't be for a hot minute because I have school and stuff. Hope you liked it. Bye bye.